justice and freedom is obtained for those people at the earliest opportunity. There is another, I think, important example of the results of your agitation, and that is in the decision of the United Nations Commission on Refugees to step over the Iraqi government, which is failing to make an arrangement to determine the refugee status of the individuals living in Camp Ashraf, and to directly itself, as the United Nations Commission, appoint people to interview individually each one of the 3,400 residents of Camp Ashraf to determine whether or not they are refugees, and I have no doubt that the determination will be favourable in all cases. And indeed, it's not only that, the United Nations Commission on Refugees has specifically said that it must be free to conduct these interviews with each of these individuals in a safe, neutral and confidential location. But UN personnel are going to be interviewing the residents of Camp Ashraf, and the United Nations says that those interviews must take place in a safe, neutral and confidential location. Well, that clearly means that the United Nations is taking responsibility to ensure that those interviews are taking place in a safe location, which means that the UN must now follow up by appointing people to ensure that Camp Ashraf itself is safe, so that these interviews can take place in a safe place. I would now like to conclude by addressing one important issue, and that is the issue of the sovereignty of Iraq. Yes, Iraq is a sovereign country, and Iraq does have the right to control over all of its territory, as all sovereign states do. That's true. But it is important to recall that with every right goes a corresponding responsibility. Indeed, it is impossible to have rights without responsibilities. And the right that Iraq has to sovereignty in its territory brings with it a responsibility to ensure that anyone who is in its territory, whether they be Iraqi natives or people who have come to Iraq seeking asylum from oppression, that they are protected, that their lives are protected, that their safety is protected, and their freedoms are protected. And I think we have to say quite clearly to the sovereign democratic government of Iraq that it is failing and has failed lamentably to exercise properly the corresponding responsibilities to protect that go with the rights of sovereignty as far as the residents of Camp Ashraf are concerned. And I believe that the European Union, which has given already €1 billion towards reconstruction of Iraq, and as you know probably only too well, euros are increasingly scarce here in Europe. We need to keep as many of the euros as we can here at home for much of the things that we need to do in our own country. But if further assistance is to be in our own countries, but if further assistance is to be given to Iraq, I think that should be made conditional on ensuring that the sovereign nation of Iraq exercises the sovereign responsibilities to protect the people at Camp Ashraf.